You ever feel like you were never really seen? Just passed over, like a background character in someone else's story? Then you might understand Generation X. They were born into a world that promised stability, but slowly revealed uncertainty. Raised between 1965 and 1980, Gen X grew up in a time of massive cultural and economic shifts, yet somehow, they became the generation no one talks about. They weren't loud enough to be remembered, and not young enough to be trending. But what they experienced shaped one of the most psychologically resilient mindsets of any generation. From a young age, many of them became what was known as latchkey kids. They came home from school to empty houses, no parents waiting, no guidance in the moment, just silence and responsibility. They unlocked doors with keys, and unlocked independence far earlier than they should have. They learned how to cook for themselves, how to manage time, how to deal with problems, alone. And without realizing it, they absorbed one of the most powerful beliefs. Don't rely on anyone. Handle it yourself. At the same time, they were being taught a completely different message. Their parents told them, work hard, stay loyal, follow the rules, and life will reward you. But reality didn't follow that script. They watched marriages fall apart as divorce rates surged in the 70s and 80s. They saw families break, routines collapse, and stability disappear right in front of them. So they learned something else, something deeper. Nothing is guaranteed, not even the things that seem permanent. Then came adulthood. They entered the workforce with discipline. They followed the rules. They stayed loyal to companies, believing effort would equal security. But then layoffs came. Without warning, without loyalty in return, they were replaced. Years of dedication erased in a moment. And just like that, another belief was formed. You are replaceable. This is where people misunderstand Generation X. They're often labeled as cynical, negative, emotionally distant. But that's not the full story. What looks like pessimism is actually preparation. They expect things to go wrong, not because they're hopeless, but because they've seen it happen before. In psychology, this is called defensive pessimism. It's not about expecting failure, it's about being ready for it, so it doesn't destroy you. They don't get easily surprised. They don't blindly trust systems. They don't depend on promises. Because they were raised in a world where promises broke. And instead of complaining, they adapted. That's the quiet strength of Generation X. They didn't broadcast their struggles. They didn't turn pain into content. They didn't ask the world to notice. They just adjusted, recalibrated, and kept going. They lowered expectations, but increased awareness. They controlled emotions, but strengthened resilience. They understood something many people still don't. Life doesn't always reward effort, and fairness isn't guaranteed. So they stopped chasing illusions and started focusing on control. And maybe that's why they were overlooked. Because the world pays attention to noise, to outrage, to constant visibility. But Generation X? They moved in silence, and silent people are easy to ignore. But make no mistake, their impact is everywhere. They were the bridge between two worlds. They experienced life before the internet and adapted to life after it. They saw technology evolve from analog to digital, from typewriters to smartphones. And they didn't just survive it, they adjusted without losing themselves. So if you're part of Generation X, or if you understand this mindset, you're not broken. You're not overly negative. You're not detached. You're aware. You've seen how things fall apart, so you learned how to stand without depending on them. You don't expect life to be easy. You expect it to be real. And that realism is your greatest strength. Because in a world full of noise, illusions, and false promises, the ones who see clearly are the ones who endure.